There comes a moment in life when the biggest problem is not that you do not know what to do. The problem is that your mind is too noisy to see clearly. Before you make an important decision, learn to quiet your mind. Not because thinking is the problem, but because too much uncontrolled thinking can hide the answer that is already in front of you. When the mind is filled with fear, pressure, anger, expectations, and imagined outcomes, even simple situations become complicated. You begin reacting to thoughts instead of responding to reality. You start creating problems that do not exist yet, and then you make decisions based on those imagined problems. A quiet mind does not mean an empty mind. It means a mind that is not being pulled in 10 different directions at the same time. You can still think deeply. You can still analyze. You can still consider different possibilities. But you are no longer allowing every thought to demand an immediate reaction. This is why the first step before making a serious decision is often to pause. Do not answer while you are angry. Do not promise something while you are overly excited. Do not make a major choice simply because you are afraid of losing something. Give yourself enough space to observe what is happening inside you. When emotion becomes intense, your perception changes. Anger makes a small problem appear enormous. Fear makes a difficult situation appear impossible. Excitement can make risks appear smaller than they really are. Loneliness can make the wrong person appear necessary. Pressure can make you believe that you must decide immediately. But not every situation requires an immediate answer. Sometimes the most intelligent response is silence. Step away for a moment. Breathe slowly. Let your body become still. Allow the emotional intensity to decrease before you decide what deserves your attention. You may discover that what seemed urgent was not urgent at all. You may realize that you were reacting to a fear rather than a fact. You may notice that you were trying to prove something to someone instead of doing what was right for yourself. This small pause can completely change the quality of your decision. Imagine someone sends you a message that makes you angry. Your first instinct may be to respond immediately. You begin typing, defending yourself, explaining yourself, attacking their words, or trying to win the argument. In that moment, your goal is not clarity. Your goal is emotional release. So you send the message. Then the emotion disappears, and you are left with the consequences. A disciplined person understands this pattern and interrupts it. They pause. They read the message again later. They ask themselves, what actually needs to be said? Maybe the answer is nothing. Maybe the answer is one calm sentence. Maybe the situation does not deserve any energy at all. The pause creates choice. Without the pause, emotion chooses for you. This principle applies far beyond arguments. It applies to relationships, money, career decisions, friendships, opportunities, failures, and moments of uncertainty. Whenever your emotions become louder than your awareness, create space. You do not need to escape your emotions. You need to observe them. Notice the anger without becoming anger. Notice the fear without becoming fear. Notice the excitement without allowing it to blind you. Notice the pressure without allowing it to dictate your direction. The more often you practice this, the more familiar stillness becomes. Eventually, you begin to recognize the difference between an impulse and a genuine decision. An impulse says, do it now. The clarity says, understand first. An impulse wants relief. Clarity wants alignment. An impulse asks, how can I feel better right now? A clarity asks, what will serve me tomorrow? This is why silence can become a powerful form of strength. In silence, you can hear what your mind is actually saying. You can identify the thoughts that are useful and let go of the thoughts that are simply noise. You begin to understand that not every thought requires an answer. Not every emotion requires an action. And not every situation requires your reaction. One of the biggest obstacles to clear thinking is the inability to separate facts from fear. The mind often takes a possibility and turns it into a certainty. Something might happen, so you begin acting as if it has already happened. Someone does not reply to your message, and you assume they are angry. You make one mistake, and you start believing that you are incapable. You hear criticism, and you immediately conclude that everyone sees you as a failure. The event is real, but the story you attach to it may not be. This is where confusion begins. Facts are what you can observe, verify, or reasonably establish. Fear is often what your mind predicts will happen next. The two can feel almost identical when you are emotionally involved, but they are not the same. Imagine you are facing an important opportunity. You think, I might fail. That is possible. But then the mind continues, if I fail, everyone will judge me. If they judge me, I will lose respect. If I lose respect, I will never recover. Within seconds, one possibility has become an entire imagined future. You are no longer responding to reality. You are responding to a chain of predictions. The first step is to stop the chain. Ask yourself, what do I actually know? Not what you suspect. Not what you fear. Not what you imagine. What do you actually know? This question brings your attention back to the present moment. It forces the mind to separate evidence from interpretation. Perhaps someone criticized your work. That is a fact. But the thought that they hate you is an interpretation. Perhaps you made a mistake. That is a fact. The belief that you will always fail is an interpretation. Perhaps someone rejected your proposal. That is a fact. The belief that you are not good enough is a story your mind created around that fact. When you separate these things, the emotional weight often becomes smaller. This does not mean ignoring danger or pretending everything is positive. Clear thinking is not blind optimism. If there is a real problem, acknowledge. If there is evidence that something is wrong, deal with it. If a person repeatedly shows you that they cannot be trusted, pay attention to the pattern. The goal is not to remove fear. The goal is to stop fear from adding information that does not exist. Fear wants certainty about the future. Reality rarely gives you that certainty. You may not know what someone will do. You may not know whether an opportunity will succeed. You may not know whether a particular decision will produce the result you want. That uncertainty is normal. Instead of asking, what if everything goes wrong? Ask, what is the most realistic possibility based on what I know? Then ask, what can I do if the situation changes? This creates flexibility instead of panic. A strong mind does not need to predict every possible outcome. It prepares itself to respond when reality reveals the next step. You should also become careful with the words you use inside your own mind. Words such as always, never, everyone, and nothing can turn temporary situations into permanent beliefs. I always fail. Everyone is against me. Nothing ever works for me. I will never succeed. These statements feel powerful because they are absolute, but they are usually inaccurate. One difficult moment cannot define an entire life. Replace exaggeration with observation. Instead of saying, I always make bad decisions, say, I made a decision that did not work. Instead of saying, nobody respects me, say, this person did not respect my boundary. Instead of saying, my future is ruined, say, I am facing a difficult situation that I need to handle. The second version gives you something to work with. The first version takes away your power. Clear thinking begins when you stop fighting imaginary battles and start dealing with what is actually in front of you. Look at the facts. Question your assumptions. Recognize the difference between what happened and what you believe might happen. Let reality speak before fear starts writing the rest of the story. One of the greatest forms of mental strength is learning how to control your reactions. Life will constantly give you reasons to react. Someone will misunderstand you. Someone will criticize you. Someone will disrespect you. Plans will fail. People will disappoint you. Unexpected problems will appear when you least expect them. You cannot control everything that happens around you, but you can train yourself to control what happens inside you before you respond. A reaction is often automatic. Something happens, an emotion rises, and you immediately act from that emotion. Anger appears, so you speak. Fear appears, so you retreat. Jealousy appears, so you compare. Frustration appears, so you complain. The problem is not that you experience these emotions. The problem begins when you allow the emotion to make the decision for you. Emotions are powerful, but they are not always accurate guides. When you are angry, you may say something that you would never say while calm. When you are afraid, you may reject an opportunity that could have changed your life. When you are excited, you may ignore risks that deserve attention. When you are hurt, you may push away people who were never truly your enemy. This is why creating a pause between what happens and what you do next is so important. Something happens. You notice the emotion. You pause, you observe. Then you choose your response. That small space may only last a few seconds, but it can completely change the outcome. Imagine someone insulting you in front of others. Your first instinct may be to defend yourself immediately. You want to prove that they are wrong. You want to make them feel the same pain they created in you. Your mind begins preparing an answer before you have even understood the situation. But what if you did nothing for a moment? What if you took a breath and looked at the situation without immediately becoming part of it? You might realize that their words do not require your energy. You might recognize that responding emotionally would give them control over your state of mind. You might choose one calm sentence and move on. This is not weakness, it is discipline. Anyone can react. It takes awareness to respond. You should also understand that controlling your reactions does not mean suppressing your emotions. Suppression means pretending that you do not feel something. Control means acknowledging the feeling without automatically obeying it. You can be angry without becoming aggressive. You can be disappointed without becoming bitter. You can be afraid without running away. You can be hurt without seeking revenge. You can be frustrated without destroying your own peace. The emotion can exist without becoming the driver of your behavior. This skill becomes stronger through practice. Start with small situations. When something annoys you, do not immediately speak. Take one breath. When someone sends a message that triggers you, wait before replying. When a problem appears, resist the urge to complain immediately. Give yourself a moment to understand what actually happened. Over time, this creates a new habit. You stop being controlled by every emotional wave that passes through you. You begin noticing your triggers. You recognize the situations that make you defensive, impatient, insecure, or angry. Once you know your triggers, you can prepare for them instead of being surprised by them. Ask yourself, what is this emotion trying to tell me? Maybe anger is showing you that a boundary has been crossed. Maybe fear is showing you that something matters. Maybe sadness is showing you that you have lost something meaningful. Maybe frustration is showing you that your expectations are different from reality. Listen to the message without allowing the emotion to control the action. This distinction is important because emotions contain information, but information still needs interpretation. You do not have to obey every feeling. You only need to understand it. The person who masters their reactions becomes difficult to manipulate. Other people may still provoke them, but they cannot easily control their behavior. They may still experience anger, but they do not surrender their judgment to it. They may still feel pressure, but they do not allow pressure to determine their direction. And with every situation where you choose awareness over impulse, you strengthen the space between the event and your response, giving yourself more freedom to act from intention rather than emotion. A clear mind becomes stronger when you understand what is within your control and what is not. Much of the stress people experience comes from spending mental energy on things they cannot change. They worry about what another person thinks, how someone will behave, whether the past could have been different, or whether the future will unfold exactly as they hope. The mind keeps returning to these questions because it wants certainty. But life does not promise certainty. You cannot control another person's opinion of you. You cannot control whether someone understands your intentions. You cannot control whether someone appreciates your effort. You cannot control what happened yesterday. You cannot control every event that will happen tomorrow. You cannot control every outcome, no matter how carefully you plan. But you can control how you prepare, how you respond, what you focus on, and what action you take next. This distinction can completely change the way you approach problems. Imagine you are working toward an important goal and someone refuses to support you. You could spend hours thinking about why they do not believe in you. You could try to convince them. You could become angry because they do not recognize your potential. Or you could accept that their opinion belongs to them and return your attention to your own actions. Their opinion is outside your control. Your preparation is not. Their approval is outside your control. Your discipline is not. Their behavior is outside your control. Your response is not. This is where mental freedom begins. When you focus on what you cannot control, your energy becomes scattered. When you focus on what you can control, your energy becomes concentrated. You may not control whether the opportunity succeeds, but you can control how seriously you prepare for it. You may not control whether someone stays in your life, but you can control the standards you maintain. You may not control whether people criticize you, but you can decide whether the criticism contains something useful. You may not control the weather, traffic, delays, or unexpected problems, but you can control how you respond when your plans are interrupted. The goal is not to become indifferent to everything. The goal is to stop confusing concern with control. You can care deeply about something without believing that you must control every part of it. This requires honesty. When something goes wrong, ask yourself, what part of this belongs to me? Maybe you made a mistake. Accept it. Maybe you failed to prepare. Improve it. Maybe you communicated poorly. Correct it. Maybe someone else made a choice that hurt you. Understand that their choice is theirs. Do not take responsibility for what does not belong to you, and do not avoid responsibility for what does. Both extremes create confusion. Some people blame themselves for everything. Others blame everyone except themselves. Clear thinking requires a middle path. Take responsibility for your actions without carrying the entire world on your shoulders. The past is another place where people waste enormous amounts of mental energy. You can replay the same conversation hundreds of times. You can imagine different choices. You can ask yourself what would have happened if you had acted differently. But the past cannot receive another response from you. What it can give you is information. Instead of asking, why did I let this happen? Ask, what can this teach me? Instead of asking, why did I make that mistake? Ask, what will I do differently next time? The first question keeps you trapped in regret. The second turns regret into learning. The same principle applies to the future. Planning is useful. Obsessing is not. Prepare for tomorrow, but do not sacrifice today by constantly imagining everything that could go wrong. You need enough awareness to prepare and enough acceptance to release what you cannot control. When you wake up, decide where your attention belongs. When a problem appears, identify the part you can influence. When someone tries to pull you into unnecessary conflict, decide whether participation serves you. When something unexpected happens, adjust instead of wasting energy wishing reality were different. Your peace becomes stronger when your attention becomes selective. Not everything deserves your mental energy. Not every argument needs your response. Not every opinion needs your consideration. Not every problem needs yours to solve. Not every outcome is yours to control. Bring your attention back to your own actions, your own choices, your own discipline, and the next step directly in front of you, because this is where your actual power remains. When you make an important decision, do not only ask what will make you feel better right now. Ask what will make you stronger later. The easiest choice and the right choice are not always the same. Sometimes comfort gives you immediate relief, but creates a larger problem in the future. Sometimes discipline feels difficult in the present, but creates freedom later. The mind naturally looks for comfort. When something becomes uncomfortable, you want to escape it. When a conversation becomes difficult, you want to avoid it. When progress becomes slow, you want to quit. When discipline becomes demanding, you want to choose the easier path. This is normal. But if you allow immediate comfort to guide every decision, you slowly train yourself to avoid anything that requires patience, courage, or sacrifice. A stronger way of thinking is to ask, what choice will I respect tomorrow? This question changes your perspective. Imagine you have an important task that needs to be completed, but you feel tired and distracted. You can spend another hour scrolling, watching something, or doing something that requires no effort. That choice feels good immediately, but later the task remains unfinished, pressure increases, and you become disappointed with yourself. The alternative is not necessarily enjoyable. You put the phone away. You sit down, you begin. The first few minutes may feel difficult, but after completing the work, something changes. You gain evidence that you can keep a promise to yourself. That is the kind of strength that short-term comfort cannot provide. Every decision is also training. When you repeatedly choose discipline, you train discipline. When you repeatedly choose avoidance, you train avoidance. When you repeatedly choose honesty, you train honesty. When you repeatedly choose immediate pleasure over long-term value, you train yourself to seek immediate pleasure. Your habits are not only shaping your schedule, they are shaping the person you become. This does not mean you should reject comfort completely. Rest is important. Enjoyment is important. Life should not become a constant struggle. The point is to recognize the difference between healthy rest and avoidance. Rest restores you so you can continue. Avoidance delays what you know you must face. Comfort becomes dangerous when it prevents growth. Before making a decision, ask yourself what price each option carries. The easier choice may have a hidden cost. The difficult choice may also have a hidden reward. Staying silent may feel uncomfortable, but it may protect your peace. Walking away from the wrong relationship may feel painful, but it may protect your future. Admitting that you were wrong may hurt your pride, but it may strengthen your character. Starting again after failure may feel exhausting, but it may rebuild your confidence. Saying no may create temporary discomfort, but it can protect your time and energy. The goal is not to choose difficulty simply because it is difficult. The goal is to choose what aligns with your values and long-term direction. Ask yourself, if I continue making this choice for the next year, where will it take me? This question reveals the consequences that immediate emotions often hide. One unhealthy decision may not seem important. One missed workout, one unnecessary purchase, one delayed task, one emotional response, one compromise of your standards. But repeated decisions become patterns. Patterns become habits. Habits shape your life. This is why you should pay attention to small decisions. Your future is not created only by major moments. It is created by what you repeatedly choose when nobody is watching. Think about the person you want to become. Then look at your daily decisions and ask whether they are moving you toward that person or away from them. If you want a disciplined life, you must sometimes make disciplined choices when you do not feel motivated. If you want peace, you must sometimes walk away from arguments that your ego wants to win. If you want confidence, you must sometimes do things that make uncomfortable. If you want freedom, you must sometimes sacrifice temporary pleasure. The strongest decisions are often not the ones that produce the fastest reward. They are the ones that build your capacity, protect your values, and make your future self grateful that you had the courage to choose differently. Every decision teaches you something, but not every decision will produce the result you wanted. Sometimes you will choose carefully and still face an unexpected outcome. Sometimes you will make a mistake because you lacked information, patience, or experience. The important thing is not to become trapped by the result. Learn from it, adjust your direction, and continue moving forward without allowing regret to control you. Many people make a mistake and immediately attack themselves. They replay the situation again and again. They ask, "Why did I do that?" They imagine how everything could have been different. They compare the present with an imaginary version of the past where they made the perfect decision. But that version of the past does not exist. You made the decision with the information, awareness, emotions, and experience you had at that moment. Now you have new information. That means you can make a better decision today. A mistake should become information. If you trusted the wrong person, learn what signs you ignored. If you wasted your time, understand what distracted you. If you accepted something you should have refused, examine why you were afraid to say no. If you reacted emotionally, notice what triggered you. If you chose the easy path and suffered later, understand the connection between short-term comfort and long-term consequences. Do not simply say, "I made a mistake." Ask, "What did this mistake reveal?" That question transforms failure into education. There is also a difference between learning from a mistake and living inside it. Learning looks at the past for information. Regret keeps looking at the past for punishment. You do not need to punish yourself forever to prove that you understand what happened. You need to change your behavior. If the same situation appears again and you respond differently, then the experience has served a purpose. This is how maturity develops. You begin to see patterns. You recognize the type of people you should be careful with. You recognize the situations where your emotions become stronger than your judgment. You recognize the habits that repeatedly create problems. You recognize the decisions that give you temporary comfort, but long-term stress. Awareness grows when you are willing to examine yourself honestly. But honesty does not mean being cruel to yourself. You can accept responsibility without destroying your self-respect. Say, "I was wrong," without saying, "I am worthless." To say, "I handled that badly," without saying, "I can never improve." A behavior can be corrected. A decision can be changed. A strategy can be replaced. A direction can be adjusted. Your identity does not need to be permanently attached to one failure. You should also learn when to change direction. Persistence is valuable, but blindly repeating the same action is not persistence. If something consistently does not work, examine your method. Maybe the goal is still right, but your strategy needs to change. Maybe the timing is wrong. Maybe you need more knowledge. Maybe you need to ask for help. Maybe the path you chose is no longer aligned with what you actually want. Changing direction is not always weakness. Sometimes it is evidence that you are paying attention. A clear thinker does not become emotionally attached to being right. They become committed to learning what is true. If new information proves that your original decision was wrong, adjust. Do not defend an old decision simply because you already invested time in it. The time is already spent. The energy is already spent. The lesson is what remains. This is why you should stop asking whether every decision was perfect. Instead, ask whether you are becoming wiser because of the decisions you have made. You will make wrong choices. You will misunderstand people. You will miss opportunities. You will sometimes hesitate when you should act and act when you should have waited. This is part of being human. What matters is whether you remain willing to observe, learn, and adjust. When something fails, pause. Do not panic. Do not immediately blame yourself. Do not blame everyone around you. Look at the situation calmly. What worked? What failed? What did you overlook? What can you change? What should you never repeat? Then take the lesson and move forward. You do not need to carry every mistake into your future. Carry the wisdom. Leave the unnecessary weight behind, and allow every experience to sharpen the way you think, choose, and act, and above all, it needs the ability to remain still long enough to see clearly. Because when the mind becomes quiet, decisions become simpler. When decisions become simpler, actions become stronger. And when your actions become stronger, your life begins to change.